Good evening. Good evening. How's everybody doing this Sunday evening? I hope your weekend is everything that you wanted it to be. Uh, Either that's relaxing and enjoying the family. Tonight we're gonna get into what is titled the wrongful capital punishment, the Marcellus Williams story. So we're gonna dive into um, Marcellus Williams, who this past week was deleted by the state of Missouri, and uh, the details that went into that story in regards to there was some evidence that was that wasn't there was some physical evidence that was in place that didn't match him and what have you. So there was some as the case went on and appeals was going on and what have you, DNA testing became a thing, and how that didn't put him in in the place of the murder of um, of the victim. So we have that. We got snatch shenanigans. We got whiskey of the week and that hot video. So without further ado, let's get it.
You are now listening to some old school shit.
So welcome back to Surreal Sundays. We got the wrongful capital punishment and Marcellus Williams story. So let's hop right into it. Let's go.
In the past 24 hours, there's been a lot of talk in the media about Marcellus Williams, convicted of fatally stabbing former newspaper reporter Felicia Gayle in her home in 1998. Williams was executed by lethal injection in Missouri last night. But his murder conviction has been called into question by both prosecutors and the victims' families. And look, I agree with those saying if there's any uncertainty at all, they should have at least delayed the execution. But what the media often ignores in a cause celeb case like this is the evidence that actually led to his conviction, which we'll talk about in a moment.
But a deeply unsettling question remains. Was Marcellus Williams innocent?
We will remember him for his deeply evocative poetry and his love for and service to his family and his community. The world will be a worse place without him. Williams is the third inmate executed in Missouri and the 15th in this country this year. He was 55 years old. He will never be older because Missouri is a state and we are a country that maintains a system of official killing without mercy, even amidst evidence of innocence.
So why did the governor, the state Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court decide not to intervene. At the time, prosecutors argued Williams broke into Gayle's home, stabbed her 43 times with a kitchen knife, also taking her personal laptop. Gayle's personal belongings were allegedly found in Williams' car, and the laptop was apparently sold by Williams shortly after the murder. But his attorney, Tricia Rojo Bushnell, said jurors didn't know the whole story.
The other piece of evidence that they use is a laptop that Mr. Williams did sell that was from the victim's home. But what the jury never heard and what the courts continue to just ignore is that laptop was provided to him by one of those incentivized informants who herself should have been a suspect, but instead was allowed to testify and get deals and sentence this man to death.
Williams, who has a long criminal history, including 15 felony convictions, ended up being convicted of first-degree murder, even though no physical evidence connected him to the crime scene. In addition to the laptop, his murder conviction relied on the testimony of two witnesses, jailhouse informant named Henry Cole, to whom he supposedly confessed, and the woman who she was referring to, his ex-girlfriend Laura Asaro, who allegedly found Gayle's purse in Williams' car, leading Williams to confess to the crime. Both witnesses came forward after a $10,000 reward was announced. The Midwest Innocence Project saying the victim's family opposes his execution. Jurors who originally sentenced him to death now oppose his execution. The prosecutor's office that convicted him and sentenced him to death has now admitted they were wrong and zealously fought to undo the conviction and save Mr. Williams' life. The biggest issue with the physical evidence, hair and bloody footprints found at the scene were not a match for Williams. In a move we don't see often, both sides came together to try and halt the execution. Williams' legal team and St. Louis County prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell filed a joint filing alleging, among other things, that DNA evidence was contaminated. Keep in mind, Bell was not the original prosecutor. He's running for Congress as a Democrat. But after all the appeal efforts and new evidence, Governor Mike Parsons saying, "We hope this gives finality to a case that's languished for decades, re-victimizing Ms. Gayle's family for decades. No juror, no judge has ever found Mr. Williams' innocence claim to be credible. 2 decades of judicial proceedings and more than 15 judicial hearings upheld his guilty conviction. Thus, the order of execution has been carried out." Look, I'm torn about this case, but those saying this should have been, an easy decision, may be ignoring the actual evidence here. Joining me now, Geraldo Rivera, who's covered as many high-profile cases as anyone. He's also an attorney. And Randy Zellen, a former prosecutor who still believes there was enough evidence to convict. All right, Geraldo, what do you make of the decision that they went forward with the execution?
I think, Dan and Mr. Zell, that it was totally unnecessary, borderline shameful. What the hell was this about? Normally it's beyond a reasonable doubt. I think in a capital case, it should be beyond a shadow of a doubt. And here, when you have, after all, the prosecutor joining the defense attorney, joining the family of the victim, all saying, don't do this, don't carry forward this execution. And then the state actually does it in cold blood. I think that this is really beyond the pale. This is totally unnecessary, as I said, borderline shameful. Why do this? Why take this man's life? Why do what everybody involved asked the courts not to do? When the family of the victim joins the prosecuting attorney and the original foreperson of the original jury, then what's this about? A jailhouse confession? Every jailhouse confession ever received should be absolutely discarded. The motivation of the cellmate to make up a story about the accused in a high-profile case is undeniable.
Right.
What happened to the snitch in the jailhouse following his turning on his cellmate?
But
where did he go?
His testimony was only one piece. Randy Zellen, what do you make of what Geraldo just said?
This is one of the few times in my TV career that my heart is actually pounding while I am on, because I have a dilemma. I agree with Geraldo from my heart and from my soul, but my head tells me that Do you not believe in the criminal justice system? A jury spoke, appellate judges spoke, attorneys generals spoke. This case was looked at over the past 2 decades, so many different ways, so many different times, by so many different people. And to me, what is so compelling, and don't tell me after the fact that you have a story, what was this man doing with the victim's personal belongings? There was no explanation, no rhyme, nor reason. And there's also, I think, something else here. Maybe this is the bigger question about, should we have a death penalty? Because you can't undo it if you get it wrong. But as long as you have it, there is the precedential effect of, well, hey, maybe there's a shadow, maybe there's one grain of possibility that we're wrong here. Then what do you do with every other death row case? So I do think that the governor's point, my heart tells me it was wrong, my head tells me he's right.
Geraldo?
You know,
That makes absolutely no sense. My heart tells me that he's right, but my mind tells me otherwise. Your heart is your mind. So you mean your emotions say one thing and your objective reasoning means another, when emotion supposedly has nothing to do with it. I have a feeling. This does not involve, or this does not give respect to anyone's feelings. The fact of the matter is, there was footprints that did not match Marcellus. The fact of the matter is, it was DNA that did not match Marcellus. Okay. So what does that have to do with, because I'm assuming that's what this gentleman meant when he said his heart says one thing and his mind says another. So your emotions, what this is a classic case of pushing the envelope, making something that is obviously incorrect, obviously not accurate, obviously flawed, and ignoring that to substantiate what's already in place. We're not going to change nothing. We're not going to change nothing. I mean, I know it looks like this. I know the facts say that. You know what I'm saying? But don't you believe in the judicial system? What does that have to? Now that's feelings. Now you embarking on an emotional aspect. So let's just ignore once again, pretty much in a nutshell. He's saying he's co-signing what the courts were doing. Because let's just ignore everything that does not put him there. And since we already got him here, let's just follow through with it. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, they build their careers on crime. Politicians as well. Prosecutors is an elective office, so they're a politician. Judges is an elective office, so they're politicians. And You know, Missouri is one of those states that have a long history of not being necessarily fair when it comes to anything. When it comes to dealing with African Americans. So and not to just throw the race card in this, because I want to try and stay off of that angle tonight. But I mean, what was the main objective? That's still yet for anybody to actually put their thumb on. Everybody can speculate, and essentially that's what we're doing tonight to a degree. What you have, I'm not in agreement. I'm in agreement with capital punishment if they can establish a specific standard that must be met. And I believe that standard is this. You must have physical evidence that puts the perpetrator there at the said crime. If there's no I'm not witnesses, not coincidences, solid physical evidence. And I mean, we're in a day and age now where we got the DNA. You got cameras all over the place. You know, it's very difficult to get away with anything. Nowadays. So let's use that. Let's use the tools that we have developed and say this is the standard. Just like you have a preponderance of evidence in civil cases. You have reasonable suspicion. You know, you have certain levels that must be met before a certain judgment or legal action is to be done beyond a reasonable doubt. So yeah, this guy is pretty much what's the term? Word salad. That's what he's doing. Let's get back into the video.
I interviewed a man named Charles Manson once in San Quentin prison. The Tate LaBianca murders that Manson engineered and caused to be carried out were horrifying. Pregnant women hung upside down and so forth. If ever a person deserved the death penalty, it was Charles Manson. As you know, the California courts overturned the constitutionality of the state death penalty statute. We are moving away from these cold-blooded executions. The state should not be involved in taking a life. You don't like this guy? Or you think that he stabbed this woman 43 times and left the knife stuck in her neck? Then you put him in a hole someplace and leave him there for the rest of his natural life. You know, open it up and give him and feed him.
But
and don't let him talk to any of the other attorneys, cellmates.
But Randy's point is that that if you follow the law, right, a jury sentenced him to death. There is more evidence.
I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah.
I like Randy. But all those people he mentioned, the attorney general, the governor, and so forth, those are all elected people. They're politicians. When every politician is for the death penalty, because law and order and crime and punishment are so profoundly center in our collective consciousness.
But the Supreme Court
we
of the
all
United
are
States,
so afraid of crime and violence and so forth.
He's making the point, Geraldo, that he's saying the courts didn't step in either. He appealed through the state courts and the United States Supreme Court. And look, and it is tough to explain, right? The items found in his possession. The defense's explanation is, well, the woman who claimed that she found them there may have actually been a suspect here, and she only came forward after they offered this reward, except she never actually tried to get the reward after they put it out there. So, you know, there is this pesky piece of evidence that it does seem to me a lot in the media when we're talking about this, just ignore some of the evidence against him just to say, oh, it was clear as day that this is a case of innocence.
What about DNA? What about the hair? What about the other evidence that was compromised for one reason or another? How can you go ahead with an execution when you don't have that physical connection of this perpetrator to that crime? You don't know
let
where
Randy
that
try and
came
answer
from,
that.
How many criminal hands it went through?
Yeah, Randy, that's a tough one, right? The fact that the hair didn't match him, the footprints didn't match him, the DNA was compromised.
Well, again, you either believe in the criminal justice system or you don't. You believe in the jury system or you don't. You believe that appellate judges try to do the right thing, elected officials try to do the right thing. The Supreme Court of the United States tries to do the right thing. You don't believe that.
And again, what does believing in someone's ability to do their job have to do with the lack of physical evidence to delete this man? That has nothing to do with that at all. Nothing to do with that at all. Absolutely not. Let me set up this other video right quick. All right. Seeing we are ready to go. There's another video on Marcellus Williams from Democracy Now! So let's get into it.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Unless the U.S. Supreme Court intervenes, the state of Missouri will kill Marcellus Williams at 6 p.m. Central Time today. On Monday, Republican Governor Mike Parson turned down Williams' bid for clemency, followed a short time later by the Missouri Supreme Court rejecting his latest legal challenge. Williams is African-American. He was convicted in 2001 of killing a former St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter, Felicia Gayle, who's white, during a robbery. He was convicted by 11 white jurors and 1 black juror after the prosecution was allowed to preemptively strike out 6 other prospective black jurors. Williams always maintained.
So much for believing in the judicial system and being judged by your peers. That was strategically done to get the outcome that they wanted at that time.
His innocence. The jurors, the prosecutor, and the murder victim's family all oppose Williams' execution. For more, we're joined in Kansas City, Missouri by Tricia Rojo Bushnell, Marcellus Williams' attorney, executive director of the Midwest Innocence Project. Welcome to Democracy Now! We only have a few minutes, but it's possible that Marcellus Williams only has a few hours. Can you explain what you are calling for and what this case at the last minute is all about?
Yes, at this time, we're asking for what Marcellus Williams has been asking for 20 3 years, which is for a court to take a full and accurate review of the proceedings before it. Right now, for the first time ever, a few weeks ago, the prosecutor had to take the stand and testify under oath about his strikes that he used during the jury selection process. And at that hearing, he testified that he, at least in part, struck a juror based on his race. Yet right now, we have yet to have a court who will fully examine and review that evidence. We know that that's a violation of the Constitution. The prosecutor agrees that violated Williams' constitutional rights. But what we see is a system that's looking at finality over fairness, rushing to get to an execution date instead of taking the time to stop this execution and look at the merits of what is being argued.
And what was the main evidence against him? And could you talk about the advanced DNA testing or what is revealed about the murder weapon?
Yes. So Mr. Williams was convicted based on what we know is a leading cause of wrongful conviction, which is essentially informant testimony. So this is a murder where there were no leads for months and months. And then at some point, the police suggested to the victim's husband that he should offer a reward. And it was only then, after a $10,000 reward had been offered, that the first informant came forward, a jailhouse informant, who said also that he wouldn't testify until he got the money. The information he provided was information that was essentially out in the public sphere from the newspaper, but he also provided information about another informant, a woman named Laura Asaro, who had had connections to Marcellus Williams in the past. She also not only had incentivized by the reward money, but police forced her to talk by picking her up on her own warrants and saying, you know, we can arrest you and charge you with these crimes unless you help us here. At the time of the crime, there was a number of pieces of forensic evidence, including bloody footprints and hairs found at the crime scene, all of which exclude Marcellus Williams. In 2015, however, Mr. Williams requested additional DNA testing of the murder weapon, which was a knife found still protruding from the victim's body. That DNA testing was performed, male DNA was found on that murder weapon, and it excludes Marcellus Williams. He is not the person who left that DNA on the knife. Based on all of that evidence, the prosecutor reviewed the case, brought forward this motion to overturn Mr. Williams' conviction on the basis of innocence, as well as on the basis of these constitutional violations, including racial discrimination. But on the day before the evidentiary hearing, new DNA testing came in that showed that the DNA on that knife could be consistent with the trial prosecutor's DNA and the trial prosecutor's investigator. At the evidentiary hearing, we've now learned that they mishandled that knife. They touched it without gloves in 2001 repeatedly, essentially destroying any potential probative value this critical evidence would have, which is what the prosecutor now also concedes was a constitutional violation.
So, Tricia, who is in charge at the U.S. Supreme Court of this case? What has to happen today?
So the stay motions go to Justice Kavanaugh, but the courts are going to be reviewing all of the cert petitions, the requests that the Supreme Court take on the case, as well as the motions to stop the execution. There are 3 petitions pending before the U.S. Supreme Court right now. The first is regarding the governor, Parson, had dissolved what was called a board of inquiry that was created to review all of this evidence. He dissolved it, even though Governor Eric Greitens had appointed it. So the first is regards to whether or not he was able to do that. The second is whether the federal courts should have reopened the case to allow this new evidence of racial discrimination in the jury selection to be heard. And the last one, filed last night, is about what weight should the prosecutor be given, his concessions be given. And we know that the U.S. Supreme Court has already granted review of a similar case, the case of Richard Glossip out of Oklahoma, where the Attorney General there said the same thing, that the constitutional error occurred here and we shouldn't execute him. And so for those same reasons, the court should hear this case as well.
Tricia Rojo Bushnell, Executive Director of the Midwest Innocence Project, the prosecutor, the jurors, and the victim's family have called for him not to be executed. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
How often do you get the prosecution to say, hold on, we made a mistake? So I believe that his counsel thought that going the angle of, going against his constitutional rights was the best idea to go about it. And typically that's what changes decisions at the appellate courts and the Supreme Court. is whether if there was a constitutional violation. Very unfortunate. It happened before many times, and unfortunately, it's going to continue to happen. I believe and I hope that the majority of us believe and would like a change as far as either get rid of it or we need another standard. And the only standard is beyond a reasonable doubt of physical evidence. And that's it, nothing else. Nothing else. We're going to continue on in this subject, but before we do, Miss O got something to say to everyone. So we're going to switch off and see what Miss O has to say. All right. So go ahead, Mrs. O. Do your thing.
Shalom, family. This is Mrs. O. Thank you for joining our channel. If you enjoy our content, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you would like to support our channel, you can do so by scanning the QR codes to the Cash App or the PayPal in the lower left corner. We would greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
All right. Thanks a lot, Miss O. Thank you for that. Yeah, if you're enjoying the content, it doesn't cost you a thing. Go ahead and hit that like. Go ahead and subscribe and share the content. Share the content. We'll appreciate that thing. What we have up next is I just want to go over some demographics in regards to capital punishment, and we'll have you a little overview. Then we're gonna go into some videos of another individual who's facing the same thing. All right, so let's check it out. Let me get it queued up. Okay. Just when you need stuff to work the most, it doesn't. So we pulled up a graph, some data here. Racial demographics, U.S. Deletion row population. And what have you. As we scroll here, we'll go ahead and expand the screen. That's the best we can do. All right. Yeah, that looks good. All right, Alabama. Excuse me. We're not going to just, as of state by state, deletion row populations by race as of January 1st, 2024. And it's not to, say one group is getting special attention over another. Although, we know the narrative on that. And there is statistics out there that suggest that, being that, a certain group is only 14% of the U.S. population, but has a certain population in the in the prison system. Not proportionate. So that suggests that something that is not right, that is unjust, is going on. But if you see here, pretty much we go down to the totals as far as black and white totals. 921, 943, but if we only represent 14%, this number should be a little bit lower, but California has a total of 222, 209. There's just certain states that pop out. Florida, of course, their populations are a little higher than most. California, Florida, New York. Let's check out New York. I guess New York doesn't have a capital punishment there, so they're not on this list. Georgia, relatively low. Missouri, relatively low. Texas, that's another big one. Texas is real big on that. 83 African Americans, 45 white. Something weird going on in Texas. Ohio, 68-48. That's another state that has a traditionally been biased or towards Black Americans. So let's get into Texas. Let's see here. Let's just pop this up. All right. Texas. Deletion Row inmate Rodney Reed. Let's check it out.
The Texas death row inmate's fight to stay alive landed in a federal appeals court earlier today. Rodney Reed maintains he did not rape and kill 19-year-old Stacey Stites in 1996, despite a Bastrop County jury convicting him of the crimes 2 years later.
Now, this morning, one of his attorneys argued before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that DNA testing on the murder weapon could possibly reveal the true killer. That murder weapon, Stacey Stites' belt used to strangle her, was not DNA tested. The technology was not available at the time. Reed asked for DNA testing post-conviction, but those requests were denied. His team claims that the state's DNA testing regime is unconstitutional. But the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals said that that evidence was mishandled and therefore too contaminated for DNA testing. Reed's team has said they believe Stacey's fiance, Jimmy Fennell, is the real killer.
If DNA testing shows a high concentration of someone else's DNA in the webbing of the belt, like Jimmy Fennell's, it would provide powerful evidence that Reed didn't commit the crime.
Now, investigators looked into Fennell as a suspect in the late 90s, but ruled him out. The attorney representing the state argued that the mishandling of evidence was not done in bad faith. At the time, routine handling of evidence was done without wearing gloves.
What they got to do with someone else's DNA being in the belt? Because you handled it in good faith, according to standards at the time. That has nothing to do with the fact that Reed's DNA isn't there and someone else's is. Just totally ignore concrete evidence, facts. Push what they want to push in this particular case. for whatever reason.
It was normal practice to handle that evidence ungloved because this was prior to touch DNA being in existence. And my opposing counsel points out in his briefs that there is now a statute in Texas that requires preservation. That statute didn't exist at the time.
It is expected to take months before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals make a decision. Today's hearing is in response to the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that Reed's DNA request can be considered because the statute of limitations had not run out.
When we take a look at the data from the state, since 1982, Texas has executed 589 people. Just this year, Texas has executed 3 men and has 3 more scheduled before January. Texas leads the nation in the number of executions since the death penalty was reinstated. That was back in 1976. As of October the 1st, 2020, 2,557 inmates were under sentence of death in the United States. Data from the state also shows the average inmate on death row waits about 11 years before facing execution.
Yeah, they wilding out in Texas. That is the Wild West for sure. Next, we got a video of what is the title of is 10 wrongly executed innocent people. But actually, these people were their sentence got turned around and what have you. But it's just going to display the inefficiency, the inaccuracy of the of capital punishment, of the judicial system entirely in whole, and what have you. Let's get into it.
Ron Kiney was supposed to be executed in 1975 alongside his friends for a brutal murder another man confessed to.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be looking at the most egregious miscarriages of justice, in which individuals were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, only to later be exonerated.
And then you find out, oh, my bad, we made a mistake.
Curtis Flowers. On July 16, 1996, 4 people were found dead inside a furniture store in Winona, Mississippi. The police quickly focused on Curtis Flowers, an African-American man who had been fired from the store about 2 weeks earlier. Flowers was tried 6 times for these murders, 4 of which ended in him being convicted and sentenced to death.
Do you have faith in the judicial system here?
The case eventually reached the Supreme Court, which overturned the conviction in 2019. The court found that District Attorney Doug Evans had largely excluded Black people from the jury in all 6 trials.
2 of the trials ended in a hung jury.
With new evidence and alternative suspects suggesting Flowers' innocence, the state decided to drop all charges against him. By this point, he had already spent over 20 years sitting on death row.
I knew it would, but I didn't know when.
Glenn Ford. When Isidore Roseman was killed in his Shreveport, Louisiana jewelry store on November 5, 1983, Glenn Ford, Roseman's handyman, was arrested. The physical evidence linking Ford to the murder was minimal. Police had found gunshot residue on his hand, and he was apparently seen with certain items stolen from the crime scene. Nonetheless, prosecutors exploited his defense lawyer's inexperience and managed to secure a conviction and death sentence.
Even though there was no eyewitness and no murder weapon, the jury came back with a guilty verdict and a death sentence.
It wasn't until 2014, after information emerged about the real killer, that Ford's conviction was overturned and he was released. Sadly, his freedom didn't last long. Ford was diagnosed with lung cancer shortly after his release, and he passed away in 2015, never receiving compensation for his wrongful conviction.
What do you think the lesson from your case is?
It's forgiveness, I guess.
Anthony Porter. In 1983, Anthony Porter was convicted and sentenced to death for a double murder in Chicago, Illinois. In 1998, he was just 48 hours away from being executed when a judge decided to grant him a stay.
And then before my coffin, it was awful.
The following year, Porter was exonerated after a team of Northwestern University professors and students presented new evidence, including a recording of Al Story Simon confessing to the murders. Simon was subsequently sentenced to prison, but was also exonerated after he recanted his confession, claiming he was tricked by the Northwestern team. Despite spending 17 years on death row, Porter was denied compensation, and he passed away in 2021. However, his case played a major role in the abolition of the death penalty in Illinois.
The Anthony Porter case was one of the cases that drew a nationwide attention to Illinois and the problem of wrongful convictions here.
Walter McMillan. In the case of Walter McMillan, it was guilty until proven innocent. An African-American man, McMillan was arrested in June 1987 for the murder of a white lady in Monroeville, Alabama.
You didn't kill Rhonda.
No, sir. I ain't never seen Rhonda Moss a day in my life.
He was sent straight to death row, where he sat for 15 months before even facing a trial. Despite numerous witnesses confirming he was with his family at the time of the crime and no incriminating physical evidence, McMillan was found guilty by a jury. Although they recommended a life sentence, the judge imposed the death penalty instead.
McMillan's fate is now in the hands of the Alabama Supreme Court, which is expected to decide soon if he's entitled to a new trial.
It was later revealed that the police had coerced witnesses to give false testimony, and prosecutors had withheld potentially exculpatory evidence. After 6 years on death row, McMillan's conviction was overturned in 1993.
As he waved goodbye to death row, there had been no apology from the state.
Ron Kiney. Back in 1974, Ron Kiney was traveling with his motorcycle club across the U.S. when Richard Velton, a college student, was murdered in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Despite Kiney and his biker gang being in Los Angeles at the time, authorities still charged them with the crime.
Then they tell us we got to go back to Albuquerque because we did a murder. And we're thinking, oh boy, this is really getting stupid.
They were convicted after Judith Weir, a local motel maid, testified to witnessing the murder. However, an investigation by the Detroit News found that Weir had lied on the stand. Even after she recanted her testimony, the men were denied a new trial.
Ms. Weir was pressured. And we see this a lot with the misuse of the death penalty.
It wasn't until September 1975 when a drifter named Kerry Rodney Lee confessed to the murder, and ballistics linked his gun to the crime scene, that the charges were dropped and they were released.
On December 4th, 1975, the judge overturned their convictions, and Ron and his friends were released from death row.
Sabrina Butler. On April 11, 1989, Sabrina Butler experienced every mother's worst nightmare, the sudden death of her infant son. After unsuccessfully attempting to resuscitate him at home, she rushed him to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The very next day, while still grieving, Butler was arrested and accused of murdering her own child. Her attempts to revive him had inadvertently caused internal injuries, but her lawyers failed to highlight this crucial detail during the trial and called no witnesses to testify on her behalf.
When we had the retrial, they found out that my son had heart problems, kidney problems.
As a result, she was convicted and sentenced to death, becoming the only woman on Mississippi's death row.
Butler was just 17 years old when she was convicted and spent 6.5 years behind bars.
This conviction was later overturned, and a second trial, which featured more witnesses and evidence supporting her innocence, ended in an acquittal.
Are you really exonerated? No, you're not exonerated.
Gary Drinkard. In September 1993, Gary Drinkard was arrested for the murder of Dalton Pace, an automotive junk dealer in Decatur, Alabama. The main evidence against him was the testimony of his half-sister and her partner, who implicated Drinkard in exchange for having their unrelated robbery charges dropped.
And to get out of it, she told him I robbed and killed a man.
Due to the ineffective legal counsel he received, Drinkard was convicted of felony murder and sentenced to death.
I spent almost 6 years on death row in Alabama for a crime I didn't commit.
After nearly 6 years on death row, he was granted a new trial. This time, his defense presented a witness who confirmed Drinkard was home at the time of the murder, and evidence showing he had a debilitating back injury, which largely limited his movement. The jury took only 1 hour to find him not guilty.
God is the only one that has the right to take a life. People don't.
Randall Dale Adams. The 1988 documentary The Thin Blue Line revolves around Randall Dale Adams, a man sentenced to death for the 1976 murder of Texas police officer Robert Wood. Adams consistently maintained his innocence, even after his sentence was commuted to life in prison. He argued that Wood was actually killed by David Ray Harris, who had given him a ride on the day of the murder.
Why did I meet this kid? I don't know. Why did I run out of gas at that time? I don't know.
In the documentary, Harris admitted that Adams had nothing to do with the crime.
How can you be sure? I'm the one that knows.
This admission, coupled with evidence of prosecutorial misconduct, led to Adams' conviction being overturned. Although he was granted a new trial, the district attorney's office chose not to prosecute the case again, and Adams was released. He received no compensation from the state of Texas.
She said the first night she pulled into Dallas, it was raining, that it was lightning, and they're coming into Dallas. And she said if there was ever a hell on earth, it's Dallas County. Yeah, she's right.
Ricky Jackson, Wiley Bridgman, and Kwame Ajamu. On May 19, 1975, Harold Franks, a money order collector, was fatally shot outside a grocery store in Cleveland, Ohio. Based on the supposed eyewitness testimony of Eddie Vernon, police arrested Ricky Jackson and brothers Wiley Bridgman and Kwame Ajamu, then known as Ronnie Bridgman.
He told the police that he was getting off the school bus at the exact time that this crime was happening, and he witnessed the three of us perpetrate this crime.
Vernon's testimony was the only evidence against them, yet it resulted in them being sentenced to death. Ajamu was paroled in 2003, but his name wasn't cleared until 2014, when Vernon recanted his testimony, claiming he had been pressured by the police to testify. Jackson and Bridgman were also released and fully exonerated. For their wrongful imprisonment, all three men received millions of dollars in compensation from the state of Ohio.
How did that feel, that day that you got out of prison?
It was surreal. It was almost like having an out-of-body experience.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them.
Time and time again, you hear convictions based on testimony. Testimony that's been pressured, coerced by the investigators, the police. People their lives are getting put on the line based on lies, that coerced lies, or maybe not so coerced in a lot of cases as well. Whatever reasoning that they tell their tale. So that's why there needs to be a higher standard. Because people can be manipulated. People can have alternative motives. So they testimony should only be used if it substantiates, if it backs up the physical evidence. When you talking about, period. Not only when you're just talking about capital punishment, when you're talking about affecting someone's life, period. Most definitely when you're talking about capital punishment, when you're talking about deleting somebody. So that's what we have on that subject, fam. Now we're about to go into snatch shenanigans. Let me cue this up. Boy, this is gonna piss y'all off. It's gonna piss y'all off. This is crazy. Let's get this going here.
Take a look at this. Take a look at this video.
All right. Switch this over. And let's get it.
Take a look at this video captured by a doorbell camera. Peel police say the woman you see approaching this home is a suspect in a brazen and violent vehicle theft.
What happened next is dangerous, and a warning: the video is shocking, but the car owner is okay. Our Mike Walker is live in Mississauga tonight with the latest. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, I spoke with the vehicle's owner just a short time ago. He declined an on-camera interview, but tells us this incident happened in a fraction of a second. Now, Peel Regional Police were releasing disturbing video that showed the auto theft, hoping someone will be able to identify the suspect.
A doorbell camera captures a woman wanted for an auto theft at a Mississauga home.
Hello, I'm here for the police.
The woman is inquiring about an Auto Trader ad for a 2022 Porsche Cayenne.
I think I'm waiting for my dad, so if I can take a look at it.
The seller unaware she has a plan to steal it. The victim declined an interview but tells CTV News at one point the woman tricks him to get out of the vehicle to open the hood to see the engine. Seconds later, another camera shows the seller at the back of the Porsche attempting to open the doors, when the vehicle quickly reverses, knocking the man to the ground and running him over before driving away.
It's definitely very scary when you get a first look at the video. It comes across very dangerous and scary, which it is. But we're just glad that the victim didn't have any life-threatening injuries. He did receive serious injuries, and is considered to be in non-life-threatening condition at this time. But it could have definitely gotten worse.
It happened around 2 p.m. back on September 6th at a home in the Winston Churchill and Eglinton area. The victim tells CTV News he suffered injuries to his hands, elbows, and legs and couldn't walk for a week, but thankfully he did not suffer any broken bones. Police say other suspects were involved. One accomplice is seen in the security footage waiting in this gray SUV. Another suspect is believed to be driving away in a blue SUV that police say the woman arrived to the home in.
So the possibilities are there of, potentially bringing the suspect to that location or helping the suspect escape or other means in terms of the generic crime itself. So, but the exact details are obviously being looked at by the investigators, but they seem to be connected.
Police say they are still trying to track down the stolen Porsche Cayenne. This incident, they say, serves as a reminder to be vigilant when selling items online and to use buy and sell exchange zones at police stations.
That's absolutely crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Wow. Wow. Almost killed the man. Don't trust a pretty face. I'm trying to tell you. The evil. Evil. Absolutely evil. But wait, there's more. Hold on 1 second. Let me cue it up.
Okay, following up on breaking news, Peel Police.
All right. Let's check it out. Let's get it.
Breaking news, Peel Police have arrested a woman seen on video running over a man while trying to steal a Porsche. 18-year-old Sarah Bradshaw of Brampton turned herself into police yesterday. She's charged with dangerous driving, causing bodily harm, vehicle theft, and leaving the scene of an accident. Police.
That's it? Bodily harm, leaving the scene of an accident, and it was something else. I'm gonna rewind this a little bit.
An accident. Police say that she's been charged with prior fraud-related offenses in Peel and is wanted by other GTA police services in separate investigations. So we first showed you this video Wednesday. Take a look at this. The suspect arrives at a home near Winston Churchill in Eglinton on the pretext of wanting to buy the Porsche Cayenne that had been advertised for sale. The woman got into the vehicle, locked the doors, then quickly reversed, hitting the man who was behind the car. At the time, police said that
did that look like, attempted murder? Really? Wow. And then those charges she gonna plead, those are the charges. Those are the initial charges. Then she gonna plead down. Get a slap on the wrist. Get a slap on the wrist. Let's rewind this again. I want to get her name 1 second. Hold on.
Breaking news, Peel Police have arrested a woman seen on video running over a man while trying to steal a Porsche. 18-year-old Sarah Bradshaw of Brampton.
Sarah Bradshaw, you are this week's Snatch. You have made it to this week's Snatch Shenanigans. Congratulations. Shannon Bradshaw. Take a good look at this devil. You see this walking up to your door. Get on 911 immediately. Do not open up the door. But seriously, folks, with these online doing business and stuff like this, meeting folks from online. I know when I was on Facebook a while ago. Last time I was on Facebook was 2019. They had the marketplace, you know, and you got eBay and things like that. And this individual, he used Auto Trader, you know what I'm saying? So when you're doing these individual sales, strongly suggest, like the video had expressed, you know, do the meetups at police stations. Do them at the police stations. Okay? Or have an entourage. Have an entourage with you. And somebody, you know, several of you, or at least one person, have the finger on speed dial for 911, and somebody have the finger on something else. Okay. So that's it for this week's Snatch Shenanigan. Next, we got that hot video. Let's get that queued up. All right, let's get this queued up. We got Tarishitha and Binah in No Pressure. Let's get it.
Spoons, mine was made from wood. Hand me down, baggy pants, you thought I was sagging. Made the best of what we had, cause we ain't really have it. I learned to be a go-getter and made that a habit. My attitude's a little different, it comes from the passion. I stay in my own lane, cause there's no traffic. And I move a little different, I ain't like your average. They said I'd be dead in jail, well I did both. 10 years dead in the prison grave, I came back a Jew. African American, made in America. Searching for my fathers, found a diamond buried in the rough. Back in society with pressure on my shoulder, convicted felon on my jacket. Best believe I still ain't folded. Vision used to be a million, now the mission is the kingdom. Yeah, I'm stumbling and falling, but I'm trying, I ain't playing.
They'll try to bring us down low, but inside us, all that pressure.
Coming out the dark, but that old man ain't dead. That nigga just ain't wrong. Gotta chisel up that block on a daily basis. People looking at you strange with confused faces. Used to be that gang banging ass nigga crazy. Now we're reading out the Bible, thumbing through the pages. Used to put it on my set that the hood made me. Then I had to pay homage cause the Lord saved me. Yeah. And I thank him for the blessing, trying to get myself together. I know time is of the essence. Don't forget yourself when you mention my imperfections. Examination goes both ways. Since you checking, I've been grinding from the bottom, grinding till I reach the top. Chastisement is equal to pressure. I ain't gonna never stop. Let's go. And the bruises maintain the course. You know life is a journey, gotta make a choice. Either go against the grain or come and serve the Lord. A journey of 1,000 miles begin when you start. Gotta move like a man, but it takes some heart. Throwing shade on my name, that's the easy part. I'm walking through this flaming furnace, there's a reason for it. God is my witness, I'm just trying to get the kingdom. I know Satan's in the midst, he just my second perfect, keep it pushing to the finish. No pressure.
Try to bring us down low, but inside us, all that pressure breaks sometimes. We'll finally go where it starts, and we'll never go forward. Bring it on. I can handle the pressure.
All right, that was hot. That sister was singing in that thing right there. Yes, sir. Singing in that thing. Well, you know what time it is. My favorite part of the show, baby. Yes, sir. You know what it is. It's whiskey of the week, baby. Of the week. Yes, sir. And this week's whiskey of the week is the Ball Vanini. Ball Vanini. Double wood, matured in 2 distinct casks, aged 12 years. It's aged in an oak cask, and then it's aged in a sherry cask. This particular scotch has a very unique flavor. It's one of those what I describe as an acquired flavor because of the sherry cask, okay? And as I explained in the previous show, I'm not a particular fan. One moment. I'm not a particular fan of the wine cask, the brandies, the sherries, the ports, so on and so forth. But this has a very unique flavor. It's very complex, as the description says, and what have you. It is smooth, and what have you. And I believe that the sherry or the wine cask fans, drinkers, will enjoy this very much. It does. The sherry cask does overshadow the oak cask and what have you, but to a degree, I think the oak cask kind of saves this particular scotch a little bit. I did enjoy it to a degree and what have you. Double wood. I don't think anyone will be entirely disappointed, but for those who are into the oaks, like the virgin oaks, the bourbon cask, one moment. The bourbon oaks, things of that nature. The peateds. This might not be their first grab or what have you, but it I did enjoy it to a degree, and I believe you will enjoy it as well. That's why I made it to whiskey of the week. The Ball Vanini, double wood, aged 12 years. Go out and get you some this week. And there you have it, folks. There you have it. When it comes to capital punishment, as I expressed earlier, it needs to be a standard. It needs to be a standard where we just, the only thing that convicts you of capital punishment is without a reasonable of a doubt physical evidence. No one's testimony Nothing in coincidence, nothing subjective, nothing that has a subjective element with it. We're talking about lives here. And we know a certain demographic, the lives don't have much value. And I know we saw some representation of other demographics. However, don't get it twisted. Don't play yourself. We all know that who gets the short end of the stick the most. Okay? Regardless of that, if we're going to do the capital punishment thing, it needs to be a standard set so high as of what I just expressed. Or we not need to do it. There's too many instances where police coerced, manipulated, prosecutors did their thing with jury selection, conveniently not putting certain elements in or stating certain elements of the case, playing on the inexperience or the laziness of the defense. It's too much of a human element in capital punishment cases. We have to eliminate that. And the only way to eliminate that is to have a standard of nothing but objective physical evidence placing the perpetrator with the victim. If that's not the case, then that perpetrator faces murder, 1, 2, manslaughter, 1, 2, and then the list goes down from that. Okay. So I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's show. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you decided to rock with us tonight, and we appreciate that thing. Until next week, take care of each other, and please believe you are your brother and sister's keeper. Good night.
My helper, we make a perfect team. We gotta stay together, good or bad, just like Al Green. You're my best friend. I know I can count on you. You complete me, made for me. This is how it should be. Whoa, whoa. Wife, your biggest supporter, I won't get out of line. Give possession, you give. Mother at home, teach the kids. Yeah, you're my best friend. I know I can count on you to lead me. You complete me. This is how it should be. there. I pray we stay together forever. Now listen, I know things not gonna always be perfect, but